Hello and welcome to the last show of Lawfully Chaotic for 2022. Thank you for joining.
22, and only
Right.
the English poppins can, like, the toppins.
Right.
Give you,
Yeah, thank
Good day,
you for joining
everyone.
us.
yeah, do it, Barry. Let's do it. Let's go full, like.
Everyone do an accent tonight, all right?
Yeah, we'll go full Northern England, I think.
Hello.
I've got
Good evening,
South
everyone.
London, all right? Bunch of jerks on television.
It'll be our version of A Christmas Carol.
You're right.
Oh, Christmas tree, oh,
Christmas tree.
Christmas tree. Big part in your campaign.
You guys all get a Christmas special tonight.
Oh, we're special every night, Barry. You know that.
Welcome to our last episode of Lawfully Chaotic for 2022, episode 40. We are taking a break after this. We're going to do some programming planning. We're going to do some graphic updates. I'm going to get Sharon a logo. I got Jason's logo. It's now in the overlay down below. You can see that. So Sharon, yours is next. And we are going to be back on the first Thursday of the new year. And we've decided that will be season 2. So we're gonna start a new season every year. Yeah, I think this show actually started in what year is this? 22? I think this actually started in 2021, but that's okay. That was the end of 21 was the pilot season worked into season 1. So anyway,
yeah.
But thank you for joining us tonight, or thank you for watching on VOD if you're watching after the fact. As with me always are my awesome co-hosts who I could not do this show without: Sharon Smith, Barry Bach, and Jason Baldrick, the storyteller of TTRPG&Co.
Hello. Toppins to you, Toppins.
Right. Tonight we are going to be talking about the gods of Dungeons and Dragons. All of them. The good ones, the bad ones, the ones that just sit there and do nothing. We shall discuss them all. But first, any announcements? Sharon.
Oh no. I don't really have anything.
No, sorry, more so than usual.
I can't even do a different one. So for tonight, I do not have anything updates wise. I mean, I'm still reading Dragonlance, which is really great, by the way. If you guys haven't had a chance, it's wonderful. And actually, 1D&D released a new module, and also there's new trailers for the D&D movie.
Yes, there are.
We should definitely review those next year. Maybe that will be the kicker, the banger. Yes, the banger.
Crack on.
Jolly good.
Right, yes. Jason, do you have any announcements for tonight?
Oh boy.
Boy, this is a train wreck with no train car.
Do you pronounce it Froderick? You ever see Young Frankenstein? Remember Young Frankenstein? Do you
yeah.
Was it Froderick?
Put
Yes.
it on the roots.
Frau Brucher.
Oh yes. Okay, Jason, let's get back to business. Announcements, please.
Yes. So 2023 is going to be a busy year. So I am happy to say goodbye to 2022. So 2023, I am revamping all my logos with RPG&Co. So all my new logos will be out for the new year. We will probably be announcing the
Yes, it did 3 miles down. Thank you for joining.
Giggle Juice opened early tonight. And I'll be announcing our new schedule, and we'll be officially breaking ground in the next week on Studio 2.0, our new 250 square foot studio that's going to look exactly like a tavern. We're having a new table commissioned, new cameras, new lights.
Wow.
We're putting some budget into this new studio.
That's
spend it while you have it, because it may never come
really
back.
freaking exciting.
Yeah, so that's all been reconfigured and ready to go. I've got
so you need to do during the process photo archive history.
yeah, we are
exactly.
I actually have Cesare is Cesare's going to be doing the remodel. So he does professional production work. and that's
Oh,
he
Ches?
does. Yeah, Ches will be doing the remodel for me.
That's very cool.
So it'll be a lot of fun. Came up with an amazing design trick. We're going to build it like a studio set so that every 6 months we could change the interior if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be panels that attach to the wall.
That's awesome.
And then you could just pull the panels off and put new panels up whenever you want to. He's got a whole new system. I don't.
It's
a slider, probably. That'd be fun.
Some are and where the bar is going to be, because we are going to build a bar.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be panels that open and close, so that when we take a break during game, we open the panel into the bar and we turn on a camera. And while we're on break, we'll be at the bar drinking from the kegs and drinking with our tankards, and we'll put someone behind the bar. So we'll take our 15-minute break. At the bar, so yeah.
Okay, I am actually going to fly out every week to play. Every week.
And I surfed the Google Pics like crazy, looking at everybody's build.
Yeah.
And brought in about 3 that I really loved what folks did.
That's
I also went out to a couple of your suggestions, Bear. In regards, remember when we did all the theme restaurants and theme bars?
Yeah.
I went out to their websites and picked up some snapshots to.
Oh, like the Broken Wand?
There's Broken Wand and one up in Canada that hasn't opened yet. The bar.
Actually, it has opened.
The Griffin.
Yeah, they started opening their bookings for the Shire, the boroughs.
Yes,
you know what we're gonna have to do? We're going to have to, I will come out there once and the 3 of us will go to one of these places and do a show from one of these places. And then you guys come out to here and we'll go to the one in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And
we'll I'd love to go to Lake Geneva. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
Hey, Fatal, what are you doing? Good to see you.
Awesome. Well, that really is truly exciting news. I can't wait to see it. It's
been a long time in the making, and it's
cool.
I'm excited. 2023 is going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on.
Awesome. Very, very cool.
What's the name of the tavern?
We don't know yet. I'm thinking of.
You haven't picked a name yet?
No, because it's gonna.
Absolutely. We always go to Bristol. That's a given.
I want to be maybe a like a what do you call it? Like a brain fart.
Call it brain fart.
No, I want it to be like where everybody out in the world gets to try to name it. Make it a contest.
Oh yeah.
Like a naming contest.
Yeah,
so,
I like that.
The leaking cauldron or
no, too close to leaking anus. I want to avoid that.
I wasn't thinking about that, but there it is.
The only snacks we have are chips made from Olestra here at the leaky cauldron.
Oh, that would be a disgusting mess, I assure you. All right. Well, very cool. That's awesome. So anyway,
what about you, Brian?
Oh, me announcements.
Yes. Now it's your turn.
I'm just working away. I got all kinds of stuff going on. I'm working on another cool brand for a kind of gaming within the community. It's a coffee company called Sacrificial Grounds.
Whoa,
yeah,
that is a
great.
Good name.
And he's going to the us is basically the main demographic, so that's pretty cool. What else? Otherwise, I've just got a whole list of stuff, graphic updates and whatnot, for the show, for other stuff, and another list of collaborative content creation. I know, Jason, you and I have to talk about that. I got some stuff at Bearded Nerd that I finally need to post. So
cool.
Yeah, pretty much more of the same for me.
So we get to get Barry Bot's logo done over the break.
That is at the top of my list for
finally.
Yeah, for the time. For my downtime this month, that's at the top of my list. So yeah,
and then we can finally celebrate Barry launching her own channel.
Yes,
Women in D&D. I know it's coming. I know it is.
There already
Women
is.
in Gaming. Barry Bot's burial chamber of sinful gaming.
Okay. Anyway, on that note, gods,
I wanna
these
start burying
demigods, gods, and whatnot. Sharon, lead us off on this discussion. I don't think this is a subject that we have touched upon really at all yet in any of our
No. So I'm excited to talk about this with y'all. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Lawfully Chaotic. Tonight is a special episode. We are going to be talking about gods and deities. And wouldn't you know it? After looking into the topic of gods, there's around 100 gods. Over 100 gods to choose from.
Yeah, there's a
we're
lot
going
to
to talk about every single one.
Single one.
Yeah, so
down
buckle
to
in,
their
everyone.
underwears.
Now we'll focus on. Well, you go ahead. I don't want to.
Okay, so for the uninitiated,
Initiate.
Uninitiated.
Everybody roll
Uninitiated.
initiated.
Yeah, there you go. Uninitiate the roll. So there's actually so many gods out there that they've actually split it into alignment categories. I know that a lot of people don't like to touch alignment, but for these specific beings, I think that's a good thing. So I would like to roll out the red carpet for the following good gods. Good gods.
Good. That's what you did there.
Bahamut. The good. It literally says the good god of dragons.
Good God!
Good god of dragons.
Did you see the size of that dragon?
It was bloody big.
And it's also known as the platinum dragon in Critical Role land. And there's also Moradane, or is it Moradin or Moradane?
I think it's Moradin.
Moradin?
I think it depends on how anybody pronounces it. I pronounce it all over the place.
Okay, so I'm going to say Moradin. Moradin, the dwarf god of creation, which is also known as the Allhammer in Critical Role. Saloon or Sayanine, which I thought these seemed very similar because I noticed that for some of the gods that are used in Critical Role, they're interchangeably used from like Greyhawk and other modules. Saloon is the elven goddess of the moon, or she's also known as the Moonweaver in Critical Role. I think that's such an awesome title.
Isn't that great?
Moonweaver? Yeah, I do too.
So cool. And then Cord is the god of athletics and sport in Greyhawk, which I thought was really interesting because the way I found out about Cord was in a Critical Role, and he's the Storm Lord.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I thought the Storm Lord was the Storm Lord.
Well, in Critical Role, he is the Storm Lord, but in Greyhawk, he's the god of athletics and sport.
Gotcha.
I mean, he's pretty swole, so it goes both ways. I think he lifts, you know.
He lifts.
So those are a small little bite of the good gods. Now, there's actually a neutral ground for gods. It could go either chaotic good or chaotic bad. I'm a huge fan of Lovecraftian horror gods, like the Great Old One.
Me too. Big time. Yeah.
Cthulhu. Yeah.
Cthulhu.
So there's actually neutral gods that can go either way, and they're chaotic. Lawfully chaotic. So, I'm glad you guys caught that. So for the neutral gods, we have Palor, which is the god of sun and healing, and is also known as the Godfather.
The Godfather.
The Dawn Father in Critical Role.
I'll tell you what, if you do this quest for me, I'll give you lots of gold and gems. And if you refuse, then I think we're gonna have a problem.
I know you're a famous dwarf, I understand. Your family is a very dwarven family with many dwarven children.
Now we want the Godfather to be canon. That would be amazing.
I'll tell you what, if you do a good job, I'll give you more spells. If not,
doing it for me.
And who else? Who else? My favorite.
Ooh, the Raven Queen, the Mistress of Death. Which is interesting because she's also kind of similar to the goddess Istis, which is from Greyhawk, and she's the goddess of fate and destiny.
Oh, that I didn't know.
Yeah. See, we're all learning something new today,
Well,
guys.
and one of the things I found very interesting, the way Critical Role kind of did their God Pantheon, which I thought was cool. They did a more traditional balance, you know, the 9 betrayer gods and the 9 prime gods.
Mhm.
And that really helps when I write and when I want to narrate how those gods come and go. It really does make it a lot easier to influence. It's one of the things I do like the way they uplifted their version of the Pantheon. And to Barry's point, if you go back like all the way, right? If you go back to Greyhawk and then Forgotten Realms, there's actually a lot of wikis that help you with the whole Pantheon thing. And they tell you the version of conclusion and, you know, the version of origin. So some guys stop at 3rd edition. Some make it all the way to 5th edition. So there's a spectrum of like a life cycle of how they develop the divine. It's just amazing.
So many.
Cool.
And like, I thought it was interesting looking all these gods up. Like, you can literally just cherry pick which gods you want in your campaign, which I thought was really interesting because I initially thought that like, okay, you're running this module, you have to stick with these gods as a set, like a play set.
I kind of feel that, you know, to that point, because I like everything very structured. And over the past, you know, number of recent years, I've tried to break out of that a little bit and be a little more freeform. And I think because, as you guys said, because there are so many gods in the mythos of the game, it's just too difficult to do that. So I think, you know, cherry picking and just saying I'm going to use these and not worrying about it, because really, you know, you think it would make sense. You know, there could be there are gods all throughout history that were worshipped by certain groups who maybe, you know, assimilated with other groups or ceased to exist or whatever. So, you know, I don't think it needs to be as structured as like Greek or Roman pantheons. And also
there was a pretty strong period in 1st and 2nd edition where they brought in a lot of those gods.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
But I kind of like where it's just, you know, I need a god that fits this mold. You know, pick that one. Okay, finish the list and then have a comment on alignment.
Yes. And last but certainly not least, we have the evil category of gods. First up is Grumpsh. Grumpy Grumpsh.
The orc god.
He's the orc god of storms and war. He is also the betrayer god, the ruiner in Critical Role.
I like the ruiner.
Ooh.
Yeah, Mercer is very good at coming up with names.
Yeah.
I've always envied him that talent of coming up with names.
He's sitting in his chair smoking weed with his wife.
Well,
yeah,
he's just
this
like,
god.
let's put
This god is like ruining everything. Oh wait!
You know what I've started to do?
I
have an ongoing note in my Apple Notes where it's just names, D&D names, and anytime I think of one, I immediately write it down because I can never remember. You know, when you're at the table and you're like, as good as I am at improv, I suck at improvising names. It's like, you meet a guy in the store, like, oh, who are you? I'm you know, John the Fighter, and it's like, oh, I'm Mike.
Oh, that's funny. You're the 5th Mike I've met today.
Exactly.
It's MYKE this time.
Exactly. Well, if you see the spelling, it's very fantasy.
It's MYKIEEEXE. The X is silent.
Nixel click.
And we have Vecna, god of evil secrets. He's also.
Go ahead.
Is Vecna a god?
That's exactly what I was going to ask. I don't think Vecna is a god.
He's a lesser deity, though, right?
Pop the brakes. This is in Greyhawk.
Oh, that's
He's
true.
the god of
Greyhawk.
evil.
Yeah.
You didn't even let me finish.
That's fair. I mean, she's going back when me and you were in our early 20s reading the book.
Yeah, come on, guys. You should already.
Because we're old farts.
Weight balance.
Sorry. Okay.
He is the betrayer god, known as the Whispered One in Critical Role. There's the betrayer
The whispered one.
You're welcome.
That's awesome too. Yeah, but I wouldn't consider Vecna a god because he was a mortal who ascended to.
Well, he's the ascended one.
Yeah.
He's a lich, though, technically, isn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
he is. Yeah.
He tried to become a god.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting question.
And
Well, I
then
mean, he can't die.
Can he?
No, he can't.
He's already dead. I'm not dead. I'm only mostly
Well,
dead.
I'm only mostly alive. I mean, mostly not alive.
All right, and who's last
Don't-
on our list?
Don't take me to the guard.
Bring out your dead.
And last but certainly not least, the flip side of Bahamut, we have Tiamat, the evil dragon god, also known as the betrayer god, the scaled tyrant. I think that's such a good name in Critical
Scale
Role.
tyrant, yeah.
That is awesome. So after listing all these amazing gods, both good, bad, and
These are like the main
depending on
ones.
yes,
Yeah,
like
this
I
is a
said, everyone,
small-
there's over 100 gods and deities.
You didn't list Joe, the god of ice cream. Surprisingly enough, he's chaotic evil.
Well, I think there's like a god that's called Blippity Boop or something. I was like, wait, that's a real god? I
Hey,
have
if you
to...
could have a superhero that uses polka dots, you could have a blippity boop god. That's just the way it is.
Bloop,
That's true. So alignment, I'd like to address the alignment issue because you mentioned that a lot of people don't like to get into alignment gods. I personally think that
I mean alignment for characters.
In
For
general,
gods, I
is what
think
she
it's
said.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Because
I'm
I
not
think
trying to start a
alignment.
controversy.
No. I think alignment is the best way to characterize gods because
Yeah.
for very obvious reasons, kind of goes without saying. And I actually feel that alignment is, and I'm guilty of this too, but alignment is supremely underutilized in the game.
That's because it's
Yeah.
dumb and boring.
Well, that's why I think it applies
Is it
really
though?
well for the
No,
gods.
Is it though?
Yeah, it's dumb and boring. It is. I haven't
Well,
used it
because
since I was
there's no
12.
You know why it is? Because there's no mechanics behind it.
Oh, I built a mechanic for it, and it was still dumb and boring.
See, this is why we don't talk about
This is
alignment.
why I can't have nice things because I break them.
You got me there. I had no response. Yeah. I
You
literally
went
couldn't think
stage
of anything.
left for,
Yeah, I couldn't
But
think of
those
anything.
listening.
to the point of the gods having a sense of alignment, yeah. Like to me, I treat all gods as chaotic, even the good
Hmm.
ones, right? Because when you're immortal
I kind of do too.
and when you influence your playthings to the importance of their divinity being used by these playthings to give them power, right? So you attract you attract people to your divinity,
Mhm.
and their religious zealots of you give you, as a god, give you your power, give you your ability to spread
Mhm.
your influence, right? So all gods are narcissists. They're all narcissists, no matter how you cut it.
How very Greek of you.
No, I actually agree.
Because that's what they're all about.
My view of the gods is very similar. I feel that no matter how good or whatnot, that they're all sitting up there, and that they're all, as much as they don't want to admit it, they're all they all succumb to the same foibles that we do, like jealousy and anger and like all of that stuff. If gods have alignment, they're all
That's exactly why I pointed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hold that same view that.
Well, it's been a great show. We're all in agreement. We will see you guys next year.
Whoa. So now that we have listed all the good, the bad, and the if I'm on a good day or on a bad day, gods, do you have to be a paladin or a cleric to serve a god? Can
No.
anybody just serve a god? How does that work?
I think one of the things I like about Divinity is that however a player decides to build their character and utilize the idea of Divinity, I just assume that Divinity is going to play out the way the player wants it to play out. Therefore, I mean, it could be like one of the things probably the most unique thing I loved about what Matt did with Jester's God, the Traveler, is that, you know, the Fae often think they are gods to the other worlds, you know, so the notion that gods, goddesses, and divinity and all that is somehow a secular reality. I think 5th edition pretty much tears down that wall, and I think it provides interesting flavor for a cleric and a paladin in their overall approach to their divinity. But I kind of feel like nowadays anyone could try to have a sense of divine in their character's backstory, whether or not they have a focused magic that lets them truly embrace that divinity in a very kind of, you know, material way of their magic or divine magic or whatever you want to call it these days. But yeah, I love it all around.
I think I was just gonna mention
yes,
that.
I was just gonna mention that too.
Yeah.
Thank you, 3 Miles.
Yeah,
I definitely believe yes.
I include Warlock with clerics and paladins in terms of where they get their magic. It may not be divine, but it does come from an otherworldly entity.
It's a pact.
It's a pact, yeah. But I think people get caught up on the paladin and cleric only because, you know, that's where your magic comes from. But I think that I actually
have two campaigns that are addressing this exact detail.
Yeah, I think.
Can I read the question?
Sorry, I thought you were saying.
Well, technically, I was still in the middle of a thought.
Okay,
yeah, but whatever. What about a setting where there are no gods? Would that be possible?
I'm sorry. This is it. This is the end.
I got her to cuss. That was awesome.
Brian, how about you talk? How about you answer that question? Anyways,
I was just
heard nothing.
In terms of, you know, the question, does only a cleric or a paladin, you know, get to serve a god or whatever? Blah, blah, blah. I think it depends on the player. If the player wants that as part of their backstory and they role play it, then I think it's a really awesome opportunity to bring that into the game with, you know, inspiration or or penalties if you develop a character that is really devout and you stray from the path, maybe it affects the actual character in the game. So I think it should be brought in for any character and utilized in a very cool way. I don't think it has to be, you know, but for characters that specifically say, I want this as part of my background, then I think it's, like I said, a really cool opportunity to actually bring that into the game itself. Okay, I'm done.
Well, I think it's a good subject matter too, because the game that shares in, there's a lot of betrayer gods in that one. So the Grain Land, I really got a chance to toy with the opposite side of the divinity table, right? What does it mean to play in a land where the dominant god kind of context are the betrayer gods?
Does Mira have a god she worships?
I think she does, doesn't she, Bear?
She originally didn't. She didn't have any god to worship, but then the Wild Mother decided to say hi. And Mira's like, hey, and then that's pretty much it right now.
Hello.
Well,
cool.
And I think when we did that whole thing with you planting the tree as an homage to the fallen, when you guys did that whole interaction with closing that gate and I don't know if you've noticed this, Cher, there's been a general absence of the divine gods, like the prime gods. I don't know if you've noticed that, like almost like Fatal's character's god is Grumash. You know, Barry's as Mira has toyed with the idea of dabbling with the Wild Mother, but the group is so transfixed on preventing these 9 betrayer gods from concluding the calamity that it becomes it becomes kind of center that the betrayer gods are the more common theme for that game right now.
Yes, and Flanfro says D&D with no.
That wasn't me that
D&D
time. Both hands, right?
Sorry.
D&D with no gods would be something I'd be interested in. So when playing D&D, do you have to have gods involved?
I don't think so.
Or can you have multiple gods in a campaign? And does that break the balance in some way?
Again, I don't think, because there's no true mechanic, I don't think there really are any rules regarding gods in the game whatsoever.
Really?
It's completely story driven, in my opinion.
I think there's a backstory mechanic that helps. One of the things that I find very clever about what Matt did was that in his history of Exandria, he actually limits the abilities of the gods, right? So when they close the divine gate for the last time after Calamity, and the betrayer gods are sent back to their prisons after Calamity, the only thing that works is influence. So they're using their influence to try to gain access to followers and fellowship. So to a certain degree, by making it an influence-driven mechanic, it becomes a lot simpler, I think, sometimes to, have multiple god influences come into play.
Interesting. And with the nature of gods, to put into example, with aligning gods to your player characters, or for your players in the game, do you match the alignment of the gods with that character, and how do you interact as a god to your players? Because in Critical Role, Caduceus and the Wild Mother.
Wild Mother.
We're going into Godfather territory here.
Caduceus and the Wild Mother, they go together, but they're a little different, but they're the same. I'm talking about.
Yeah. Are you going to Jersey? You got to go get that at Jersey, or you got to come down here to the Bronx? Because I'm just saying.
The Godfather, Father, and the Wild Mother. So with Caduceus and the Wild Mother, like, they had a very interesting kind of like relationship or dynamic, I would say, because he was able to communicate with her and vice versa, like through the environment. And she didn't even necessarily directly talk to him. It was literally just like cues that he would interpret from her. Like, he would get good feelings or bad feelings depending on what she sends to him as like a sign. Yeah. And then when speaking about Jester and the Traveler, like, you could tell that their relationship is way more personal. It's very intimate, and like, she directly talks to him. I mean, they're like literally besties as a, well, I mean, because the Traveler isn't really a god, but still, but he's a deity. So...
Well, I mean, that you bring up a good point, Bear, because in a game, what defines divine? Is it something that somebody believes in, and then via magical influence grants that person divine powers of that thing that they believe in? So whether it's something you believe in the Fae, whether it's something you believe in the Shadowfell, or a traditional divine presence, I think you just kind of answered a very good way of comparing Caduceus and Jester's relationship with their understanding of the divine.
Yeah, and it's very different, like completely different, both of them, but somehow it works so well. It makes sense for the character to have a deity like that communicating with them in that way. So my question is, for you guys DMing gods to your players, how do you approach that aspect with your players, Brian?
So again, I think it's even when Matt does that, it's story driven. It's very natural, and it's just part of the way he tells the story for each of those characters, and it fits their person. It fits the characters' personalities, both Caduceus and Jester's.
Yeah.
I kind of look at gods in terms of alignment, and and how they interact, and do you have to be the same alignment as your god? I kind of look at it as a little bit of like a Venn diagram. you know? So like if you have a neutral god, then your
Mhm.
character could be any alignment. If you have a lawfully good god, probably he's not going to accept anybody that isn't at least neutral or you know, or to the left, right?
Gotcha.
Same thing with a lawful evil god. Although I could see that going either way. They may use somebody who is good,
Yeah,
for some
deceive them.
reason. But yeah, I mean, again, I think that's the beauty of this aspect of the game is you can really tailor it to drive the story the way you need to, and not
Mhm.
have to worry about a whole lot of mechanics that drive it or dictate it. Like I mentioned, the Raven Queen is my favorite. One reason is because she's so neutral and can literally flip from good to evil, right,
Yeah.
on a whim. And there's just so much canon behind her, and I have her in almost every one of my campaigns
Oh,
in
that's
some way,
cool.
because again, it's a great way to to kind of steer the story, or just another tool to steer the story to your
Hi,
needs.
Dorito.
Hey, Andrew, what's up? How you doing?
I will say this much in season 2, so spoiler alert, but not a major spoiler. In season 2, Caduceus successfully has a divine intervention moment that completely changed the difficulty of an outcome. They could have spent 10 sessions, risk TPK and everything trying to find that entrance. But
Yeah, that was amazing.
that was an amazing example of when you decide at the very beginning of your campaign structure to have a healthy relationship with godlike pantheons from a character's perspective.
Mhm.
As a DM, you're accepting the responsibility of how to handle that potential 1% outcome, and that
Right.
outcome could really influence a great deal of that written work that you've just prepared over the course of those potential interventions. Less likely to happen near the beginning, but incrementally it becomes more possible as the laws of averages will eventually catch up to you, and the probabilities will eventually catch up to you.
Let me ask you this. And it's funny we're talking about this, because in my campaign that I'm going to start, very quickly, very soon after the first of the year, I
Yeah.
want you guys in. This actually plays a big part in that story, gods and deities.
Ooh.
Do you guys do you consider back to Vecna, right? Is he really a god? If somebody can't die, what separates them from gods? Yada yada yada. Do you consider like devils and demons to be gods?
I think to a certain extent, I would think, because like you can make agreements with them, no? Just like the devil of the crossroads, you make a pact with your soul, and you have to do
Kind of.
something in
I
return.
mean, if you think about a warlock, that they get their powers through that pact. I mean,
yeah.
Well, I mean, my gods are so shady.
and I don't,
Even
and
though,
I, I'm
like,
not saying, I'm not saying specifically would you use that label to classify them, but can you utilize them as gods in your game? Like Asmodeus, for instance.
Yeah.
I would
he
think
not?
so.
I like, for example, one of my favorite things to do is to multi-layer, like put in multiple angles of why someone's a big bad, right?
Yes.
So if you could imagine an ancient red dragon that's gone mad and inadvertently thought Asmodeus was, the dragon god, right?
Mhm.
Tiamat. It offers up a storyline that's really interesting, because what is Asmodeus looking for? Why is this ancient red dragon convinced that Asmodeus is Tiamat? And how can that be a setting for your players coming into a situation like that? What does it do? Does it automatically mean a cleric somehow has extraordinary abilities because they're facing divine, whether they be good or bad divine? Divinity is divinity. You don't really need to label it. It's divine power. Yeah, I'll get to that
Ooh.
in a minute because I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
When you make the decision to accept a player's understanding of what they think divinity means, as creative as it allows you to be, it also requires the highest degree of adaptive skill to respond to a player's mood changing. Because I have seen a lot of players fall out of love with their character because they overdid it with the divine. Suddenly they felt like divinity was playing their character and not themselves.
That's interesting that you say that, because if you recall back in campaign 2 for Critical Role, Ford had a pact with Uk'otoa, and that later kind of soured for the character himself, and Caduceus was the one who offered the olive branch for the Wild Mother, which I thought was interesting because I didn't really think that like you could switch deities like that, and especially because Uk'otoa was like a very kind of like evil apparent god. Or is Uk'otoa a god? I don't. You know what? We're gonna work on that later. I'm sure that he is.
Well, that's a good lead into 3 Miles' question.
Yeah.
At what point is it more? What is the definition of God in the game?
Well, and like for example, if you're like another really good example of how Matt handled an interloping creature into the prime material plane, right? The creature that hung out at the base of a volcano was being treated like a god.
Yeah.
But it clearly wasn't a god, right? It was fleeing its ancestral plane of existence because the mad city of Aor was drifting through the plains and causing fear amongst those that didn't want to get absorbed by this thing, right? So it found a safe haven in the prime plane and then figured out a way to manipulate the local population to feed their greed and to feed their sense of how they attain their power. And to a certain degree, they could have used their sense of magic to allow someone to appear divine and therefore establish the idea of being a god, but they clearly destroyed the creature.
Well, it depends on the setting and the context too. On Krypton, Superman's not a god. It could be argued that here he's a god.
Yeah.
It really is on perspective, really.
And that's why, again, I don't think that there's any, I don't think that there's any, there are the classic, Zeus, he's a god, but what makes Zeus any different than, Vecna or somebody, I think that the definition of a god comes down to challenge rating.
Well, that, and also like the
20 or higher, you're a god.
And also like the setting of your campaign, really, because like that's how you're able to dictate what is a god and what isn't. Because like you could make a grand demon a really evil god.
Well, I think 3 Mile brings up another good point related to immortality, right? So one of the things I like to play with a lot is that gods never really want to leave their plane of existence because that's where their power is derived from. In the hierarchy of gods, Ioun has died multiple times. And when she dies, she returns to the Weave, and then eventually the Weave will select a new goddess to represent Ioun, right? So the idea of the perpetual magic veil is always self-sustaining.
I never knew that.
So one of the things I really love about the immortal complex is that they may be immortal on their plane of existence, but when they become an avatar because they want to interact with a certain plane of existence, their avatar certainly is not immortal. Their avatar is very much subject to the rules of the plane of existence that they're on, that they're visiting. And sometimes what happens is that if they do that too frequently, it weakens them back on their original plane of existence. And then the jealous gods see this weakness as opportunity. And then it creates a theme of conflict, a theme of gods versus gods. And sometimes, if you look at the Greek and Nordic gods are always a classic example of just hierarchical jealousy and
They're very human.
that's it. The representation of human emotion
Yeah.
really is what they are. And I don't really treat D&D gods all that differently, right? The Raven Queen is so much fun because she is the god of death. You can't have life without death, right? You can't have death without life. So I typically pair her with the Dawn Father, right? So you have the Dawn Father that kind of represents the rising sun and the beginning of a new day and the beginning of life. And then you have the setting sun, which is, the matron of death, the termination of, and then you have the moon that rises to keep death at bay. And then you have the sun that rises to, absolve everybody of the perpetual idea of life, right? So you can use the natural environment. You can use the different gods to have different expressions of how your players and how that world is like, consuming all that detail and setting the notion of
what's
divinity.
interesting? I really think that the creators of the game put the gods in there as a story element. Because there has never been a stat block for a god in the game, if I'm not mistaken.
I was just about to ask that.
Deities and Demigods 2nd edition did put stat block.
For the major gods?
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Deities and Demigods. That book was
on my wall. I have it somewhere, but
that book was very much their first attempt, because then they released the Immortal Planes, the Battles of the Immortals. They started to really realize that there was a whole content.
Okay, but since AD&D and Deities and Demigods, it's never been broached again in that way.
Yeah,
right?
Not really.
So I think it's fair to say that they didn't want to put them in a box, in a stat block box and a challenge rating box because of that very reason, because then it takes all the story ability. It takes all the narrative out of it, Well,
so I will say one of the things that I love the most, and I'd love to get both your takes on this as a potential future campaign that Barry might be in with me when we wrap up Graying Lands. But what are your thoughts on Oathbreakers? The idea of an Oathbreaker.
I think it's awesome. I think, again, it's an opportunity for a super, super rich backstory and personal journey that can either be the impetus for an entire campaign or, a parallel storyline for one character. I think it is a fantastic tool to use.
Would you play an Oathbreaker, Cher, as a character?
For those that don't play D&D, or if it's their first time, Jason, what is an Oathbreaker, and is it only for a paladin class?
I think it originated that way. I think it originally became a really fun mechanic for paladins that fall out of favor or purposely fall out of favor with the divine. However, I think it's an easy mechanic to use in multiple ways.
Yeah.
Whether you're a cleric, a paladin, or a druid, or if you use your belief in a divine to access your magic ability, if you choose to break that oath, I think it offers up a lot of creative outcomes, for sure.
So is that technically a reset button?
It can be, I think. I think you could even be an Oathbreaker with your pact. Right? You could decide to break that oath, lose all your powers, and then have a really different way of playing out your character from that point.
So, I'm sorry for referencing Critical Role so much, but was Ford technically an Oathbreaker?
Technically, he was a sea paladin. He became a sea paladin because of his transitional relationship from the journey that he was on. So even though he broke an oath of the journey that he thought he was on, he hadn't committed to that oath yet. That oath was in flux. It was part of his story.
Yeah.
And I think Travis genuinely didn't like the story. I don't think he enjoyed it. I think he saw it as a story that was going to lead him down a path that he just wasn't comfortable with.
Yeah, and
You
that's
know,
okay to do.
Yeah.
It's interesting because he was one of my favorite characters from season 2, along with
Mhm.
Caleb. And I think they did a really, really awesome job of handling that transition. I mean, it was
Yeah.
perfectly natural. Me personally, this is just my opinion, I did not like the switch. I loved Ford, the warlock. I did not like him after the transition at all. To me, all of the intrigue, all of the conflict just went right out the window. I'm glad he did it to maintain interest in his character, and I don't fault him for that. But just for me as a watcher, I thought it ruined the character personally. I wanted to see that story play out.
Yeah, and I think that's why they're releasing the Ukatoa Chronicles out on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying a pact is on the same level as an oath?
I think
it's
so.
They're synonyms. It's semantics.
I think so. I think the only traditional difference is that sometimes that pact comes with an immediate penalty, where usually if you break an oath, the penalty
Right.
is more subdued.
Yes.
So if you break
Really?
a pact
Yeah.
with a very dark force and they decide that they're going to take your soul because you broke the pact,
Mm-hmm.
that's very different than if Pike decided to not be involved with Sarenrae anymore. If she lost her faith, she'd be on a new journey to discover either a new faith or just no longer have a faith.
The word
But
pact
can be very unique.
The word pact is just a game mechanic.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's a warlock game mechanic, but it's synonymous with oath, in my opinion. Just it's generally where an oath is in the light, a pact is in the dark, traditionally in terms of the game. But it's the same.
There you go.
I don't know. Pact is a tough one because I have a lot more fun.
No, actually, I would
sometimes
3 miles. I would say it's the opposite. I would say an oath is more mutual. You are giving that god. That god is giving you their favor, and you are giving that god your faith. A pact, I see, is more submissive. Like, you got to do your part, or I'm going to fuck you up.
Or else, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I push back on that a little bit. I think the idea of a character falling into an oath related to their faith could be very one-sided from their point of view. Desperation, anger, revenge, justice. There could be a very emotional constraint to what pushed them towards that oath. A lot of times I think a pact is a little bit more, I want power. And if you can give me that power, then I'll make my pact with you. But if your power isn't good enough, I may break my pact with you. And then the pact keeper will look at that subject and go, I will give you all the power you deserve as long as you continue to make me more powerful where I am. And I think that mutual understanding of what power means makes pacts a little bit more unique. Just a little bit more unique.
I still think that even that, the difference between the two is semantics. But it's interesting to look at it both ways, definitely.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Bear.
It's okay. And actually, you make an interesting point because the next question was, when you use these gods, are they a guide or an essential plot point in your campaigns? Like when you speak about, oaths and pacts, like, is that like an wow, words tonight, guys. The giggle juice. Is it an essential plot point in your campaigns when you use those gods for those specific pacts or oaths? Like, is that the theme?
Again, I think it depends on the story and the campaign.
Can you fight a god? Wait, yeah, you. Can you?
Well, I mean, Tiamat.
You
could. I mean, they built a whole structure, a series of modules.
You can
eventually
fight.
You take on Tiamat.
You can fight the personification or the proxy of that god.
The avatar, yeah.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I see gods as just a very open-ended aspect of the game that is extremely open to interpretation, and
Yes.
I don't think they fall under any specific rules.
They're
I mean,
malleable.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
from a campaign mechanic, they make for interesting cults.
Mhm.
They make for interesting ways of creating subtext and kind of creating passive tones of influence throughout different kingdoms. You know,
I was
with
just, yeah, I was just gonna say it can dictate the feel of a city or a kingdom. You know how they react to those who don't subscribe to their beliefs. I mean, it's just
well, in the Dwindle Empire, you know, based on the accounts of Manfred and the dealing of the holy cults and the unholy cults, it led the Dwindles to believe that only certain gods should be sanctioned,
mhm,
right? And then in Vasselheim, you
mhm.
have, you know, a theocracy, you know, of Othanzia. Othanzia is basically a theocracy. And I think you could create really fun campaigns around the idea of their influence and the idea of their interpretation, and do something really fun, like when a champion of the moon goddess comes down to punish everybody for trivializing gods.
Mhm.
That was Matt Mercer's message to the party. If you think it's funny running around making fun of gods, here's a little reminder about how fucking powerful they are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, and it was only Jester's love and absolute Laura Bailey killer high persuasion rolls that saved the Traveler. Matt was ready to kill the Traveler.
Mhm.
He would have killed the Traveler that night.
Yeah.
The Moonweaver. Thanks, Swamp Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Moonweaver sent her champion.
I love that scene
That was,
too.
to me, that was the most ingenious way to remind a group of adventurers your actions have consequences either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The open world theme is super healthy when it comes to divinity. Super healthy.
Yep. I agree. And I
Yeah,
also
the
like
god-
the fact that that there are no stat blocks anymore, because you can basically, you know, you're a god, so you know, dice rolls be damned. If you want to punish somebody, you know, you're punished.
Yeah.
They will smite you down.
You are smoten.
You are smoking on a giant pile of smoke.
Well, that just about wraps up our gods and all things chaotic, evil, and lawfully chaotic. That's a really bad transition, but you
I
guys
see what
go
you
with
did
it,
there.
okay?
It was pretty cool.
Yeah,
it was
it's
pretty
okay.
cool.
Yeah,
was
it's
good.
good. Flawless.
And we're saying goodbye to 2022, everybody.
Yes.
We are on
Should
a
we
break
do
after this, and we won't be back till next year.
Release!
We do
Release
rollies?
the last 2022.
All
I'm
right?
gonna try with Rick and Morty again.
Here we go. Oh,
Damn it!
I thought that was 04. That's a 20.
I got a 6. You're up, B Bry. Big
That
Bry.
is a natural 20.
Yeah, where's Beer's staff?
So
Hey, that was from the crowd. That wasn't from me.
as Jason said, thank you all for. That's right.
I'm
That's right.
working on it.
I wasn't
I'm
following.
working on progress.
Okay,
But
we're
thank you.
So I'm making a promise to the entire gaming community that Sharon will have mirror staff done for our next show in 2020.
For our season premiere.
As you guys said, we say goodbye to 2022. Everybody have a safe and happy and healthy and game-filled holiday season.
Absolutely.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year, and all of the other holidays that everyone celebrates this month. And yeah, that's. I'm a little sad for some reason. What the fuck is with that?
Bye, fun.
And Merry Christmas, everyone. Sharon, where can we find you now and always?
Hello, everyone. I always like to stretch my arms out. It's just such a good episode.
That's the druid in you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another final episode. Not another episode. That is the final episode of Lawfully Chaotic. You can find me here over on Instagram at BarryBot, and you could also catch me on Saturdays on the Twitch and YouTube channels at the Grain Lands campaign, helmed by the storyteller here, Jason. I play as a druid Kalistar named Mayra. Catch
And
me
what
there.
level are you now, Mira?
20.
Whoa!
No.
You're a god!
See,
What
it all
level
comes
are you now?
full circle. 15.
15, yeah.
Yeah. So please join us on Saturday, 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific time. Jason, where can we find you?
You can always find me over at my Twitch channel, where all my social links are at TTRPG Academy over on the Twitter space, as long as Elon can keep the lights on and things don't go completely
Elon can keep the lights on.
defunct. But yeah, you can find us. We have a very healthy Discord. You can pop into our Discord, hang out with us, and play and learn and teach and have a lot of fun playing games, because that's what we do. Where can we find you, Brad?
RPG&Co on Instagram is the easiest place to find me, but head over to linktree/rpgandco.com and check out my website, check out my shop, shoot me a message. I always love to chat with anybody about anything game related. Otherwise, once again, happy holidays, happy new year. We will see you in January.
See you next year.
Season 1. Season 2, episode 1. Until then, be kind, play games, and happy new year.
Bye, everyone. Happy holidays.